The space around Kepler 442 looked like a graveyard. Broken ships floated in the darkness, their metal hulls twisted and burned. Some were so old that plants had started growing on them. Others were fresh from yesterday's battle, still glowing. Red from laser hits. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Hughes Valiant. He had been watching this same battle for 3 months now. Every day, the alien fleets would come out of their hiding spots, shoot at each other for a few hours, then go back home. Tomorrow they would do it again. "Same old dance," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her position at the weapons controls. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and tired eyes. "The blue crystal ships will fire first, then the dark metal ones will respond. After that, the bug-like ships will." "Try to flank them," Jake nodded. He had seen this exact pattern dozens of times. The aliens called it the Battle of Kepler 442, but it was not really a battle. It was more like a deadly game that never ended. The war had been going on for over 300 years. It started when two alien races, the Zephyrians and the Korvax, met at the edge of the galaxy and decided they both wanted the same star system. Instead of talking about it, they started shooting. That was 3 centuries ago. Now, 47 different alien species were involved in the war. Each side had pulled in their friends, their allies, and sometimes their enemies. The war had spread across 12 sectors of space, destroying whole worlds and killing billions. But here was the strange part. Nobody was winning. The Zephyrians had better shields. Their crystal ships could take massive hits and keep fighting. The Korvax had better weapons. Their quantum torpedoes could punch through almost any armor. The Montari aliens could read minds and coordinate their attacks perfectly. The Vex were like living computers and could calculate the best battle plans in seconds. Every time one side got an advantage, the other sides would copy their technology or find a way to counter it. It was like a deadly game of rock, paper, scissors that went on forever. "Look at them," said Chief Engineer Bobby Clark, pointing at his scanner screen. 57 ships on the Zephyrian side, 61 ships for the Korvax and their friends. They will fight for exactly 4 hours and 23 minutes. Then they will retreat to repair their ships. Bobby was right. Jake had timed the battles. They always lasted between 4 and 5 hours. The aliens would exchange fire, damage each other's ships, maybe destroy 1 or 2 vessels, then pull back. A week later, they would return with repaired ships and do it all over again. "Why do they keep doing this?" asked Amy. "They have to. No, it is pointless." Jake had wondered the same thing. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. When human ships first arrived, the aliens had barely noticed them. Human technology was primitive compared to theirs. While the aliens had ships that could bend space and time, humans still used chemical rockets and nuclear engines. "They fight because fighting is all they know," said Dr. Carl Weber, the civilian scientist who was aboard to study alien battle tactics. "Look at their formations. Every ship knows exactly where to go. Every weapon knows exactly when to fire. They have turned war into a ritual." Weber was probably the smartest person on the ship. He had spent years studying how the aliens fought. His job was to figure out why a war that had lasted 3 centuries never actually ended. "They have rules," Weber continued. "Unwritten rules about how to fight properly. They do not target supply ships. They do not attack planets with civilians. They do not use certain types of weapons. They have made war civilized." "Civilized war," Bobby laughed. "That is like saying friendly murder." But Weber was right. The aliens had developed a way to fight that would never actually destroy their enemies. It was war without the risk of losing everything. Admiral Lisa Hayes watched the battle from her flagship, the the U.S. Constitution. She commanded the small human observer fleet, just 12 ships that were supposed to watch and report back to Earth. The aliens had given humans permission to observe their battles, probably because they thought human ships were too primitive to be a threat. The Zephyrian flagship is taking damage to its port side, reported Commander Pete Jackson, her tactical officer. They are rotating to bring their stronger shields to bear. The Korvac response will be to target their engines next, Hayes predicted. Force them to move into the asteroid field where the Mantari ships are waiting. She was right. The battle played out exactly as she had described. The aliens were so predictable that human observers could guess their moves hours in advance. This predictability was what made the war endless. Everyone knew what everyone else would do. The Zephyrians would use their diamond formation. The Korvacs would respond with their spiral attack pattern. The Mantari would try to flank. The Vex would provide electronic support. After 300 years, all the tactics had been tried, tested, and countered. Every species had learned how to defend against every other species. No one could gain a decisive advantage because everyone knew how to neutralize it. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Nancy Phillips from the communications station, "we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to know if humanity would be willing to mediate another ceasefire." Hayes was not surprised. This happened every few months. The aliens would fight until they got tired, then ask someone neutral to help them negotiate a break. The ceasefires usually lasted 6 months, just long enough for everyone to repair their ships and build new ones. "Tell them we will consider it," Hayes replied, but she was thinking about something else. For 2 years, human military planners had been studying this war. They had watched thousands of battles, analyzed millions of tactical decisions, and reached a disturbing conclusion. The aliens were not fighting to win. They were fighting to keep fighting. It was like they had forgotten what victory looked like. They had created a system where no one could lose completely, which meant no one could win completely either. The war had become its own purpose. On Earth, military leaders were asking a different question. What would happen if someone entered this war who actually wanted it to end? The current battle was winding down right on schedule. The Zephyrian fleet was pulling back with moderate damage. The Korvac alliance was claiming victory, even though they had lost more ships. Both sides would spend the next week repairing and preparing for the next engagement. "Same time next week," Amy said, watching the alien fleets retreat to their respective staging areas. But Jake was thinking about the reports he had been reading from Earth. Human scientists and engineers had been working on something they called Project Endgame. The details were classified, but the name suggested that humanity might have a different approach to the problem of endless war. The aliens thought war was a permanent condition that needed to be managed. Humans thought war was a temporary problem that needed to be solved soon. The galaxy would learn the difference between those two philosophies. The war that had lasted 3 centuries was about to encounter a species that believed war should end. And when humans decided to end something, they did not do it halfway. Dr. Carl Weber sat in his small office on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The walls were covered with screens showing battle footage from the Galactic War. He had watched the same clips hundreds of times, looking for patterns that other people might miss. Weber was the head of the Human Strategic Analysis Division. His job was simple but important: figure out why a war that had lasted 300 years never ended. The answer he had found was disturbing. The problem is not their weapons or their ships, Weber explained to General Patricia Stone, who had come to hear his monthly report. The problem is how they think about fighting. General Stone was a tough woman in her 50s. She had fought in Earth's last major war 20 years ago, back when humans still fought each other instead of watching aliens do it. She understood real warfare, not the strange dance the aliens performed in space. "Show me what you mean," Stone said. Weber pressed a button, and the largest screen lit up with a tactical map. It showed the positions of every alien fleet in the current battle zone. Red dots for the Zephyrian Empire, blue dots for the Korvac hegemony, green dots for their various allies. "Look at how they move," Weber said. "The Zephyrians always take the same positions. The Korvacs always respond the same way. After 300 years, every battle follows the same script." The screen showed dozens of previous battles, overlaid. On top of each other, the patterns were identical. Ships moved in the same formations, attacked the same targets, retreated at the same times. "They have turned war into a sport," Weber continued. "There are rules about what you can and cannot do. You cannot attack civilian targets. You cannot use certain weapons. You cannot pursue retreating enemies too far. You cannot destroy supply bases." "Those sound like good rules," Stone said. "They are good rules for limiting damage," Weber agreed. "But they are terrible rules for winning wars. The aliens have created a system where nobody can lose completely, which means nobody can win completely either." Weber pulled up another screen showing casualty statistics. "In 300 years of fighting, they have never lost more than 15% of their forces in any single battle. Compare that to Earth's Second World War, where entire armies were destroyed in single campaigns." Stone studied the numbers. "They fight to avoid losing, not to achieve victory." "Exactly. And there is something else." Weber opened a new file containing intercepted alien communications. "Listen to how they talk about the war." The alien voices came through the speakers, translated into English. They discussed battle plans, casualty reports, and supply requirements. But they never talked about ending the war or achieving final victory. "They plan battles, not campaigns," Weber observed. "They think about next week's engagement, not next year's strategic goals. They have no concept of what victory would actually look like." Meanwhile, on Mars, Commander Pete Jackson was working on a very different project. The Human Defense Initiative had been quietly developing weapons and tactics that the aliens had never seen before. "The key is understanding their weaknesses," Jackson explained to his team of engineers and tactical specialists. "The aliens are not weak because their technology is bad. They are weak because they think in predictable ways." Jackson's workshop was full of strange-looking devices. Unlike the elegant curves and smooth surfaces of alien technology, human weapons were angular, brutal, and efficient. They were designed for one purpose: ending fights quickly. "Show them the kinetic penetrators." AID engineer Nancy Phillips. Jackson picked up what looked like a simple metal rod, about 3 feet long. "This is our answer to their energy shields." Every alien ship has shields designed to stop energy weapons, lasers, plasma cannons, particle beams. But they have never encountered pure kinetic weapons. "It is just a chunk of metal," said tactical analyst Roger Kim. "A chunk of metal moving at 10% of light speed," Jackson corrected. "Their shields cannot stop solid matter moving that fast. It would be like trying to stop a bullet with a flashlight." Phillips activated a holographic display showing test results. "We fired these at captured alien shield generators. The shields did not even slow them down. The metal goes right through like the shields were not there. But that is not the best part," Jackson continued. "Watch this." The display showed a computer simulation of a kinetic penetrator hitting an alien ship. The metal rod punched through the hull, traveled the length of the ship, and came out the other side. The ship's internal structure collapsed like a house of cards. "One shot, one kill," Kim observed. "Against ships designed to survive hours of energy weapon fire." Phillips added. Jackson moved to another workbench covered with electronic equipment. The aliens also depend on their communication networks. Every battle is coordinated through quantum transmissions between ships. Cut those communications, and their perfect formations fall apart. He showed them a device about the size of a briefcase. This is a quantum communications jammer. It does not just block their signals. It feeds false information into their networks. We can make their own computers work against them. What kind of false information? Kim asked. Wrong target coordinates, fake damage reports, orders to retreat when they should attack. Their ships will think they are receiving commands from their admirals, but the commands will be coming from us. The human approach to warfare was fundamentally different from what the aliens practiced. Where the aliens had rules and traditions, humans had one simple goal: win as quickly and completely as possible. Back on Europa, Dr. Weber was explaining this philosophy to General Stone. Human military doctrine is based on a simple concept. He said, wars should end. Not pause, not continue at a lower level, but end completely with clear winners and losers. Weber showed her historical footage from Earth's wars. Armies surrendering unconditionally. Cities occupied by victorious forces. Treaties signed that completely reorganized political boundaries. The aliens have forgotten how to do this, Weber continued. They fight limited wars with limited objectives. They never try to completely defeat their enemies because they do not want their enemies to completely defeat them. Mutual assured survival, Stone said. Yes, they have guaranteed that everyone will survive, but they have also guaranteed that no one will ever win. The war continues because continuing is the only outcome their system allows. Stone studied the alien battle footage with new understanding. So they are trapped in their own system. Completely trapped. They cannot escalate beyond certain levels, because that would break their unwritten agreements. They cannot withdraw completely, because that would mean admitting defeat. They can only keep fighting the same battles over and over. Weber pulled up one final screen showing human military preparations. But we are not trapped by their system. We never agreed to their rules. We never signed their treaties. We never accepted their limitations. The screen showed human ships under construction in orbital shipyards around Earth. They looked primitive compared to alien vessels, but they were designed according to different principles. They were not built to fight elegant battles. They were built to end wars. When we enter this conflict, Weber said, we will not be fighting to maintain the balance of power. We will be fighting to destroy it completely. General Stone smiled. For the first time during the briefing, the aliens are about to learn the difference between warfare and war. As Weber compiled his final report, he reflected on what humanity was about to do. The galactic powers had spent 3 centuries perfecting the art of fighting without winning. They had created a system of perpetual conflict that served everyone's interests, except one, actually ending the war. Humanity was about to introduce them to concepts they had forgotten: total victory, unconditional surrender, and the idea that some conflicts should be resolved permanently rather than managed indefinitely. The aliens thought they were fighting a war. They were about to discover they had only been playing a game, and that game was about to end. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood in the command center of the orbital station above Earth. The room was filled with the best military minds humanity had to offer. On the giant screen in front of them, colored dots showed the positions of every alien fleet in the galaxy. Gentlemen and ladies, Hayes began, the Galactic Council has made their request. They want us to help negotiate another ceasefire between the warring factions. Commander Jake Morrison, who had been promoted to fleet command after his months of observing alien battles, shook his head. Another 6-month break so they can rebuild their fleets and start over again? That is their plan, Hayes confirmed. But we have a different idea. Operation Endgame has been approved by Earth Command. The room fell silent. For 2 years, everyone in the room had been working on this plan. Even so, when they heard it spoken aloud, it sounded impossible. Colonel Andy Sullivan stepped forward to the main display. He was a small man with gray hair, but his mind was sharp as a knife. In 72 hours, the largest battle in 50 years will begin at Kepler 442. Every major alien faction will be there. The screen showed ship movements from across the galaxy. 63 different fleets were converging on the Kepler 442 system. The Zephyrian Empire was bringing their entire crystal armada. The Korvac hegemony had assembled their largest force ever. Even smaller factions that rarely participated in major battles were sending ships. Intelligence reports indicate they are planning the most elaborate engagement in the war's history, Sullivan continued. Maximum spectacle, maximum coordination, maximum ... pointlessness. Which is why we are going to end it, Hayes declared. All of it, the entire war. In 5 hours. Captain Amy Carter, now serving as a tactical coordinator, raised her hand. Ma'am, with respect, 63 alien fleets represent over 4,000 ships. Our entire fleet is only 48 vessels. Numbers do not matter when you change. The rules of the game, Hayes replied. Dr. Foster, please explain our technical advantages. Dr. Rachel Foster activated her presentation. She was the chief scientist for the human fleet, a quiet woman who had spent years studying alien weaknesses. Our ships are invisible to their sensors, she began. Not because we have advanced stealth technology, but because we have primitive technology. The screen showed comparative scans of human and alien vessels. The alien ships glowed brightly, with energy signatures from their exotic matter drives, quantum computers, and shield generators. The human ships were barely visible, showing only the faint heat signatures of nuclear reactors and chemical thrusters. Their sensors are calibrated to detect advanced technology, Foster explained. They scan for antimatter reactors, gravitic drives, and quantum field generators. They are not looking for ships powered by nuclear fission and chemical rockets. So we can get close without being detected, observed Commander Bobby Clark. Very close, Foster confirmed. We have tested this extensively. A human ship can approach within weapons range of an alien vessel without triggering their defensive systems. Colonel Sullivan took over the briefing. Phase 1 of the operation involves deploying our stealth units 12 hours before the main battle begins. While the alien fleets are positioning themselves for their ritual combat, we will be infiltrating their formations. The display showed the predicted deployment pattern for the upcoming battle. The aliens would arrange themselves in the same formations they had used for decades. The Zephyrians in their diamond pattern, the Korvacs in their spiral formation, the Montari in their crescent shape. They are so predictable that we know exactly where every ship will be positioned, Sullivan continued. Our stealth units will hide in the asteroid fields and debris clouds, waiting for the signal to attack. Phase 2 begins when the aliens start their battle, said Commander Pete Jackson, now serving as the fleet's chief tactical officer. While they are focused on fighting each other, we will target their command and control systems. Jackson activated a detailed schematic of alien fleet organization. Every alien battle group depends on constant communication between ships. They coordinate their movements through quantum transmissions, share sensor data through neural networks, and receive orders through encrypted channels. We jam all of it, Foster added. Our electronic warfare systems will flood their communication networks with false signals, corrupt their databases, and overload their quantum processors. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. The aliens had become so dependent on their advanced communication systems that they had forgotten how to fight independently. Cut their communications, and their perfect coordination would collapse. Phase 3 is the decisive moment, Hayes announced. When their fleets are scattered and confused, we reveal ourselves and deliver an ultimatum: complete surrender or total destruction. Captain Nancy Phillips, who commanded one of the human stealth ships, asked the obvious question: what if they refused to surrender? Hayes' expression was cold. Then we show them what human warfare looks like. The room's atmosphere became tense. Everyone knew what that meant. The aliens fought limited wars with limited objectives. Humans fought total wars with total victory as the only acceptable outcome. Our kinetic weapons can destroy any alien ship with a single hit, Jackson explained. Their shields are useless against solid projectiles, moving at relativistic speeds. We can eliminate entire fleets in minutes. But ship-to-ship combat is not our primary strategy, Sullivan added. Our real target is their ability to continue fighting. The display showed the alien supply network: fuel depots, repair stations, communication relays, and logistics bases scattered across dozens of star systems. For 3 centuries, these installations had been considered off-limits by the unwritten rules of galactic warfare. We target everything, Hayes said simply. Supply ships, repair facilities, command centers, communication arrays, everything that allows them to maintain their war machine. The concept was alien to the galactic powers. They had fought for centuries without attacking each other's support infrastructure. It was considered unsporting, even barbaric. That will be seen as a violation of the laws of war, warned Dr. Foster. We never agreed to their laws, Hayes replied. Earth is not a signatory to any galactic treaty limiting warfare. We are bound only by our own rules of engagement. Commander Morrison studied the tactical displays with growing understanding. This is not just about winning a battle. This is about making it impossible for them to continue the war. Exactly, Sullivan confirmed. Traditional military doctrine focuses on defeating enemy forces. Our doctrine focuses on eliminating the enemy's capacity to fight. The difference was crucial. The aliens could accept losing battles because they knew they could rebuild and fight again. They had never faced an enemy that would destroy their ability to rebuild. The psychological impact will be as important as the physical damage, Doctor, Foster observed. These civilizations have never experienced total defeat. They do not even have words for unconditional surrender in most of their languages. Hayes nodded. They are about to learn new vocabulary. The final phase of the operation was the most ambitious. After forcing the surrender of the alien fleets, human forces would occupy key strategic positions throughout the galaxy. Not as conquerors, but as peacekeepers ensuring that the war could never restart. We will station human ships at every major military installation, Hayes explained. Any attempt to rebuild war fleets will be stopped immediately. Any attempt to restart hostilities will be met with overwhelming force. How long will we maintain this occupation? Asked Carter. As long as necessary, Hayes replied. Until the galaxy learns to resolve conflicts through negotiation instead of warfare. The plan was ambitious, beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. They were not just trying to win a battle, or even a war. They were trying to change the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. The aliens have spent 3 centuries perfecting the art of fighting without winning, Hayes concluded. We are going to teach them how to win by not fighting. As the briefing ended, the human commanders dispersed to prepare their ships and crews. In 72 hours, they would attempt something unprecedented, ending a 300-year war. In 5 hours, the galaxy was about to learn that there was a difference between warfare and war, between fighting and winning, between managing conflict and resolving it permanently. Humanity was about to demonstrate all 3 concepts simultaneously. Captain Jake Morrison floated silently in the asteroid belt around Kepler 442, watching the greatest armada in galactic history take shape before his eyes. His ship, the UES Terminator, had been hiding among the rocks for 18 hours. Its primitive nuclear reactor cold and quiet. Through his view screen, Morrison could see the alien fleets arriving exactly as predicted. The Zephyrian crystal ships materialized in perfect diamond formations, their hulls reflecting starlight like giant jewels. The dark metal vessels of the Korvac hegemony emerged from hyperspace in their traditional spiral pattern, looking like deadly flowers blooming in the void. "This is incredible," whispered Dr. Karl Weber from his position at the observation station. 63 fleets, over 4,000 ships, and they are arranging themselves exactly according to the tactical manuals we studied. Lieutenant Amy Carter monitored the communication frequencies from her tactical station. They are following the same coordination protocols they have used for centuries. Every ship knows exactly where to go, exactly what to do. Morrison activated his encrypted communicator. Around the asteroid belt, 11 other human ships waited in similar hiding spots. All stealth units, report status. One by one, the responses came back. The UES Devastator was positioned near the outer planets. The UES Retribution hid behind a large moon. The UES Victory waited in the shadow of a gas giant. Every human ship was invisible to alien sensors. Primitive technology, masked by the very simplicity that the aliens had learned to ignore. "Look at them," said Chief Engineer Bobby Clark, studying his sensor displays. 300 years of evolution, and they still fight like it is a ballet performance. The alien battle was beginning with all the ceremony of an ancient ritual. Energy beams lanced across space in carefully measured exchanges. Shields flared and dimmed according to predetermined patterns. Each species followed tactics that had been refined over centuries of limited warfare. Phase 1, execute, Morrison commanded. Across the battle zone, human stealth units activated their primary weapon systems. But instead of targeting the alien warships, they aimed at something the galactic powers had never thought to protect: their communication networks. The effect was immediate and devastating. Quantum communication arrays that had coordinated multi-species. Operations for centuries suddenly went silent. The carefully orchestrated battle dissolved into chaos as ship commanders found themselves cut off from their fleets. Admiral Kekstar of the Zephyrian fleet tried desperately to contact her wing commanders. Her quantum transmitters produced only static. Across space, General Morthake of the Korvac forces attempted to coordinate with his Montari allies and received no response. The psychic communication networks that linked different species were being jammed by human electronic warfare systems. "Sir, we are detecting massive communication failure across all alien formations," reported Lieutenant Pete Jackson from the Terminator's sensor station. "Their coordination networks are collapsing faster than they can adapt." Dr. Rachel Foster, monitoring the battle from the human command ship, watched as 3 centuries of tactical evolution crumbled in minutes. They built their entire combat doctrine around networked operations. Without coordination, they are reverting to individual ship actions. The beauty of the human strategy became clear. The alien fleets had evolved beyond simple combat effectiveness. They had become dependent on their ability to coordinate complex operations involving dozens of different species, each with their own tactics and technologies. "They are like musicians without a conductor," observed Commander Bobby Clark. "Each ship is playing its own song, but there is no harmony." Morrison watched as the elegant alien formations began to break apart. Ships that had relied on constant tactical updates were forced to operate independently, using combat procedures that had not been tested in isolation for centuries. "Phase 2, commence," Morrison ordered. The second hour brought revelation. As the alien fleets struggled to restore communications, the human fleet emerged from hiding. 12 vessels appeared from asteroid fields and planetary shadows, their primitive chemical engines glowing. like ancient torches against the sophisticated backdrop of alien technology. The reaction was immediate and universal: confusion. Admiral. Kekstar stared at her sensor readings in disbelief. The human ships registered as barely capable of interstellar travel, their energy signatures so low they seemed like antiques. Unknown vessels. Identify yourselves. Came the transmission from the Zephyrian flagship, broadcast on all frequencies in a desperate attempt to re-establish communication. Admiral Hayes responded from the UES Victory, her voice carrying across the battle zone on simple radio waves. This is Admiral Lisa Hayes of the human fleet. By authority of the Terran Federation, I order all combatants to stand down and prepare for surrender negotiations. The response was predictable. Laughter echoed across the communication channels. The idea that 12 primitive ships could threaten over 4,000 advanced vessels was absurd by any conventional measure. Admiral Hayes, came the reply from General Morthic, your intervention is noted, but unnecessary. This is a matter between the established galactic powers. Your war ends now, Hayes replied simply. Begin Phase 2. The third hour brought horror. Human ships did not engage in traditional space combat. Instead, they deployed weapons that existed outside the galactic understanding of civilized warfare. Kinetic kill vehicles, simple chunks of metal accelerated to 10% of light. Speed began striking alien vessels with devastating effect. The first target was a Zephyrian cruiser, whose shields had withstood centuries of energy weapon attacks. The metal projectile passed through the energy barrier as if it did not exist, punched through the ship's hull, and continued out the other side. The cruiser broke apart like an eggshell. Their defensive systems are completely ineffective, reported Commander Nancy Phillips from the UES Retribution. 300 years of shield evolution, and they never considered kinetic projectiles and relativistic speeds. But the real shock came when human forces began targeting non-combatant vessels. Supply ships that had been considered off-limits by galactic convention suddenly found themselves under attack. Communication relays, repair facilities, medical. Ships, targets that had been protected by the unwritten rules of limited warfare. Sir, the humans are destroying our logistics network, reported a panicked Korvac officer to his commander. They are attacking supply convoys, repair stations, even hospital ships. The concept was incomprehensible to alien minds. For 3 centuries, warfare had been conducted between designated military units using agreed-upon methods. The idea of total war, of targeting the entire infrastructure that made prolonged conflict possible, was beyond their experience. This violates every convention of civilized warfare, transmitted Admiral Kekstar to any ship that could receive. Her signal. We never signed your conventions, came Hayes' reply. You wanted war. Now you have it. The fourth hour brought desperation. With their communications disrupted, their supply lines severed, and their fleets scattered, the alien commanders faced a situation they had never encountered: total military collapse. Ships that had fought for centuries according to established protocols found themselves isolated and vulnerable. Advanced technology became meaningless when there was no coordination to deploy it effectively. The careful balance of power that had maintained the eternal war was shattered. They cannot be serious about unconditional surrender, transmitted Admiral Kekstar to the few ships still in communication range. No civilized species demands total capitulation. Look at their history, replied General Morthek, whose fleet had been reduced to scattered, communication-dead vessels. Humans do not fight limited wars. They fight for complete victory or total destruction. The fifth hour brought decision. Admiral Hayes broadcast her final ultimatum on all frequencies, her voice reaching every surviving alien ship in the system. You have 10 minutes to signal your complete and unconditional surrender. Any vessel that continues hostile action will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is not a temporary ceasefire. This is the end of your war. The alien commanders found themselves facing an impossible choice. Their entire civilization was based on limited conflict with negotiated outcomes. The human demand for total surrender was incomprehensible. But as they watched their fleets burning in their support, networks collapsing, they began to understand. Humanity did not fight wars to maintain balance. They fought wars to end them. One by one, the alien fleets began transmitting surrender signals. Not tactical withdrawal or strategic repositioning, but complete capitulation. Some species had to invent new words to express the concept. At exactly 5 hours after the battle began, the last alien commander surrendered. The 300-year galactic war was over, ended not through negotiation or gradual peace, but through humanity's demonstration that wars were meant to have winners and losers. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. There was a difference between fighting and warfare, between conflict and war, between managing violence and ending it permanently. Humanity had taught them all three concepts in 5 hours. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442, Ambassador Carol Martinez walked through the halls of the new Galactic Peace Authority building on Haven Prime. The structure was a symbol of everything that had changed: human engineering principles, combined with alien construction methods to create something completely new. The transformation had been remarkable. Species that had spent 3 centuries killing each other were now working together on reconstruction projects, trade agreements, and scientific research. The war that had defined galactic civilization was becoming a distant memory. The psychological impact has been extraordinary, explained Dr. Carl Weber, now serving as the chief analyst for the Peace Authority. These civilizations had completely forgotten that wars could actually end. They had built their entire culture around permanent conflict. In the main conference room, representatives from all 47 former enemy species gathered for their weekly coordination meeting. The Zephyrian delegate, Ambassador Kellanash, raised a question that many aliens had been asking. "I must understand," she said, her crystalline features reflecting the room's lights. "How did humanity develop such devastating military power in only 50 years of contact with galactic civilization?" General Patricia Stone, now serving as the Peace Authority's military advisor, smiled politely. "We did not develop it, Ambassador. We already had it. The real question is why your people abandoned theirs." The truth was becoming clear through research conducted by joint human-alien teams. The galactic civilizations had once fought total wars, but they had evolved beyond them. They had created limited warfare as a civilized alternative to the mutual destruction that had once threatened their species. "Your civilizations learned to fight without destroying each other," explained Dr. Rachel Foster, who now headed the Galactic Historical Research Project. "It was actually a remarkable achievement. You found a way to resolve conflicts without risking complete annihilation. But you forgot how to win," added Commander Jake Morrison, who had been promoted to head the new Interspecies Military Academy. "Your wars became games with no real victors." The aliens were struggling to understand human concepts of total victory. Their languages had words for defeating opponents, but not for eliminating them completely as threats. Unconditional surrender was so foreign that several species had to develop new ways of thinking to comprehend it. Former Admiral Kextar, now serving as a strategic advisor, had become an expert on human military philosophy. The other species developed elegant solutions to the problem of warfare, she explained to a gathering of former military commanders. Humanity developed a solution to the problem of enemies. The reconstruction effort was moving faster than anyone had expected. Without the constant drain of military resources, the galactic civilizations discovered they had enormous capacity for peaceful development. Star systems that had been war zones for centuries were being rebuilt with human-designed Infrastructure. The irony is beautiful, observed Ambassador Martinez during our weekly report to Earth. We ended their war by showing them how to fight it properly. Now they are so terrified of total warfare that they are more committed to peace than ever. Before, the most significant change was cultural. The alien civilizations had developed a deep respect for human military capability that bordered on fear. They understood that humanity possessed both the knowledge and willingness to end conflicts permanently. Commander Amy Carter, now directing the Galactic Conflict Prevention Center, had created a simple but effective system. Any species showing signs of aggressive behavior was required to attend seminars on human military history, with special focus on total warfare concepts. The sessions covering human conflicts in the 20th century are particularly effective, she reported. When they learn that humans fought wars designed to completely destroy their enemy's ability to continue fighting, they develop a healthy appreciation for our current restraint. The educational programs were having their intended effect. Alien. Leaders who learned about human warfare came away with a new understanding of what total conflict actually meant. They saw recordings of cities destroyed, entire armies surrendering, governments completely replaced by victorious forces. This is what human warfare looks like, Carter would explain to each new group of alien officials. Complete victory, unconditional. Surrender, total reorganization of the defeated society. This is what we chose not to do to you. The message was clear. Humanity had shown remarkable restraint in how they ended the Galactic War. They could have destroyed alien civilizations completely, but instead they had chosen to simply end their ability to continue fighting. Former General Morthak, now working as a peace negotiator, often spoke about this to other former military leaders. The humans could have eliminated us entirely, he would say. Instead, they eliminated only our capacity for war. We should be grateful for their mercy. The galactic community was learning what peace actually meant. Not the temporary absence of fighting, but the complete resolution of the conflicts that had driven the eternal war. Human mediators were helping former enemies address the original disputes that had started the fighting centuries ago. Most of their conflicts were based on misunderstandings or resource competition, explained Ambassador Martinez. 300 years of fighting, and they had forgotten what they were originally arguing about. The Zephyrian Empire and Korvac. Hegemony, the two powers whose territorial dispute had started the whole war, were now working together on joint colonization projects. The star system they had fought over for centuries was being developed cooperatively, with both species sharing the resources. It turns out there was enough for everyone, observed Dr. Foster. They just needed someone to force them to sit down and talk instead of shoot. The human occupation forces were gradually being reduced as alien civilizations proved their commitment to peaceful resolution of disputes. Human ships still patrolled key locations, but their presence was becoming more symbolic than practical. We will maintain peacekeeping forces as long as necessary, Admiral Hayes had announced. But our goal is to work ourselves out of a job. The economic benefits of peace were becoming obvious. Trade between former enemy species was flourishing. Scientific cooperation was advancing technology faster than centuries of warfare had. Cultural exchange was creating new art, literature, and philosophy. They are discovering that cooperation produces better results than competition, noted Dr. Weber. Their civilizations are advancing more rapidly in 6 months of peace than in decades of war. But perhaps the most important change was psychological. The alien species were learning to think differently about conflict resolution. Instead of seeing disagreements as opportunities for limited warfare, they were developing diplomatic solutions. We have established the Galactic Mediation Service, explained Ambassador Martinez. Any dispute between species is now referred to human mediators before it can escalate to violence. The mediation process was simple but effective. Human negotiators would listen to both sides, identify the core issues, and propose practical solutions. If either side rejected mediation, they would be reminded of what human military intervention looked like. The threat is always implicit, Carter observed. They know what we are capable of, so they are very motivated to find peaceful solutions. The galaxy was also learning about human concepts of justice and law. The Peace Authority had established courts to prosecute war crimes and resolve disputes according to principles that emphasized restoration rather than revenge. Human justice focuses on preventing future conflicts rather than punishing past actions, explained Chief Justice Roger Kim, a former tactical analyst who now headed the galactic court system. We are more interested in building peace than assigning blame. As the first anniversary of the Battle of Kepler 442 approached, the transformation was complete. The galaxy had learned to live without perpetual war, and humanity had established itself as the guarantor of galactic peace. We taught them the most important lesson, reflected Admiral Hayes during a ceremony honoring the human forces who had ended the war. Wars should end. Conflicts should be resolved. Peace should be the goal, not just the pause between battles. The galactic community had discovered that there was a difference between managing conflict and resolving it, between fighting limited wars and achieving lasting peace, between maintaining balance and creating justice. Humanity had demonstrated all these concepts, and the galaxy was learning to live by them. The 300-year war was over, not just ended, but resolved completely and permanently. Peace was no longer just the absence of war. It was the presence of justice, cooperation, and hope for a better future